Good morning. Namaste. This is Dr. Uma Keduvital, Department of Biotechnology, Faculty of Agriculture and Veterinary Sciences, Jayoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. Uh, as I had told in the previous session, I'll be taking the course on Metabolism and Bioenergetics Lab. So in the previous session, we had dealt with the basic principle of a spectrophotometer. So in this, I had told you about how a spectrophotometer can be used in order to determine the concentration of various compounds or the determination of the amount of particulate matter, like number of cells in a solution, a specific volume of a solution using a spectrophotometer. So how does a spectrophotometer achieve this? So that is what we will be dealing with in this session. So the instrumentation of a spectrophotometer. So as I had told, a spectrophotometer is an instrument that measures the amount of lights or photons which a sample substance has absorbed after the light has passed through it. And the determination of the amount of known chemical substance in concentration through the measurement of the the detected intensity of the light is one of the major applications of spectrophotometry. So, but how does a spectrophotometer achieve that? So I'll show you a basic more, like a line diagram for a spectrophotometer. So this is what is a spectrophotometer. So yeah, so this is what is a spectrophotometer skeleton. So there will be a light source which will give light of a certain range. And then there is the monochromator. What is the monochromator? Monochromator, as you can see from the diagram, it's a prism. So in school, at school, you would have studied that when you are using a prism, then when light passes through a prism, it will be split into various colors due to diffraction. So when you are passing light from the light source through a prism, it will be actually splitting through, and it will give light of various wavelengths. Now, what you will do is there will be an adjustable aperture, and this aperture will be used to send the light of only the required wavelength and of the required intensity through this aperture. And once this happens, it will pass through the cuvette. Now, cuvette can be actually a plastic container. It should be transparent. That is the major requirement. But what material it is made of, that will depend on what your sample is and what wavelength you are using. Like if you are using UV light and you are using a plastic cuvette, it will give you a huge error because plastic absorbs the UV light. And so you will be getting absorbance in the range of like above the maximum specificity or the maximum sensitivity of the instrument. Like say the instrument is sensitive up to a range of an absorbance of 1, and you are using a plastic cuvette in order to measure DNA concentration, and the wavelength used is in the UV range of 260 nanometers. What happens? So what will happen is you will get an absorbance value in the range of about 4, and that is an error as such. This is happening because plastic itself is absorbing all the light that has been sent through in the UV range. And so nothing is actually passing through to the photo detector the photoresistor where the light can be detected. And so since there is like complete absorption and the photoresistor gets absolutely no input in the form of light, so it gives a very high value. Now, if we were using a quartz cuvette instead. So cuvettes are normally made of three materials. Quartz is the most expensive one, which is used in for UV measurements. Glass is the medium range one, and that is used for multiple uses. Like it could be used for UV, but it's not preferred. It is used in the for visible wavelengths because the glass as such has got much less absorption than plastic. And then the plastic cuvettes. Plastic cuvettes have a slight amount of absorption in itself, but it's very cheap and it's disposable. So if you have the requirement for measuring a chemical that will stain your cuvette, then it would not be advisable that you use glass or quartz cuvette because they are in more expensive range. So then you will be using the plastic cuvette. So you have to determine which kind of cuvette you want to use depending on what the purpose of that experiment is, whether it will stain your cuvette, and all the expenses, the monetary factors also need to be considered for that. So once you have the cuvette, you have your sample kept in there and it is passing through the solution. Then this much part is the spectrometer. This is your sample and this is the photometer. So the photometer will have a photoresistor which will determine the amount of light that has passed through the solution. So over here, actually, there are two concepts that are present. So I naught is the intensity of the light that was sent. So the input light is I naught. The intensity of the input light is I naught. And the intensity of the transmitted light is I. So what the photoresistor is measuring is the intensity of the transmitted light. So it is actually measuring the transmittance. So what is absorbance? Absorbance is the amount of light that has been absorbed. And so that is simply I naught minus I. And that is the calculation that is done after the signal has been amplified by the amplifier. The amount of light absorbed is determined by subtracting the original intensity of the light minus the intensity of light detected at the photoresistor, and that is given as the absorbance A, and that is your output. So that would be the basic principle of a spectrophotometer. Now, what are the laws governing the use of a spectrophotometer? There are two laws, the Beer's law and the Lambert's law, which has actually been clubbed together to form the Beer-Lambert's law, which is used to define the principle of operation of a spectrophotometer. So for a spectrophotometer, Beer's law says that the absorption will be proportional to the concentration of the solute used. So absorption is proportional to concentration is what Beer's law will be saying. And now if this will be Beer's law and absorption is proportional to path length is Lambert's law. So you have absorption is proportional to concentration for Beer's law, and you have absorption is proportional to path length in Lambert's law. Now you combine both of these together and absorption is proportional to C into L. This will be Beer-Lambert's law. So this is what your Beer-Lambert's law is, that absorption is proportional to concentration and path length. So both will be multiplied. Now, if you are adding a proportionality constant, then absorption is equal to epsilon into C into L, which is the actual form of the Beer-Lambert's law. So what is epsilon? Epsilon is the molar absorption coefficient. So epsilon is actually defined as the molar absorption coefficient. So what is molar absorption coefficient? So it is basically something like if you have a cuvette of a path length 1 centimeter, say, and you have a solute concentration of, again, unity. So for 0, it will be 0. And then for this 1 unit, whatever is the absorption measured for 1 concentration. And then if you are drawing a straight line between absorption 0 for the blank and absorption whatever value you are getting for your solute of unit concentration, and it is passing through a cuvette of unit length, then whatever the slope you are getting is your absorption coefficient. So there is a very simple way of determining the molar absorption coefficient. So you will be plotting you will be taking multiple concentration solutions, like say 0, 1, 2. So this will be 0, which will be your blank. This is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, this is 6. So you have plotted you have taken your solute, different concentration of your solute. And then what you will be doing is you will be getting the absorption, say 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, and 0.6 for your solutes. Then what will happen? So you have to get the slope of this line. So I hope all of you know what the slope of a line is. Like if a straight line is defined as y is equal to mx plus c. And over here, since the intercept is 0, since you are blank, there will be an auto 0 option for the blank. So whatever your blank solution is, you will be actually using it to make an auto 0 in that. And that we will cover in the procedure section. So once you have that, what you need to do is so your blank will have a 0 value, and then the absorption value will increase with this. So your y is equal to mx plus c, where the c becomes 0. So you have a value of y is equal to mx. And here your x is your solute concentration and y is your absorption value. And for that, so if you are getting the slope of this value, like from this point to this point, you are taking the 2 y values and you are taking the 2 x values. So if you are like taking the 2 x values and you are taking the 2 y values, so you have 0.2 and 0.4. And for that, you have the corresponding x values from your graph. And once you have both of them, then you will be doing a y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1 in order to get the slope. That is how your epsilon is calculated. So what is the importance of epsilon? Epsilon is something that is defined for each chemical compound. And that is a value that helps you determine the concentration of the solute, because for cuvettes, mostly the path length is defined as 1 centimeter. It's normally kept a constant. So that doesn't vary. So once that is kept a constant, then this epsilon value that is obtained from your standard curve is what helps you in identifying the concentration of an unknown solute when you have your absorption, like you take the solution with an unknown concentration of your solute. You have already prepared your standard curve. Then you have to actually interpolate into this graph, interpolate in this graph in order to find out the concentration of the solute from the absorbance of the solution that has been obtained using the same spectrophotometer. So again, another thing, If you are using two different spectrophotometers, they will have they will give you different slopes actually, but your epsilon is going to remain the same, whatever that happens, because the absorbance as such is can be determined based on your value, but the range through which it changes, that is your epsilon. So that is going to be a constant for a particular chemical. Like say you are using cobalt chloride, which is blue in color, and you are taking 1 molar solution, 2 molar solution, and so on. And then you are plotting an absorption curve. You are using one spectrophotometer, which will give uh, the absorbance values of 0.2 OD, 0.4, 0.6, and another one which is giving 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. But your slope value is going to remain the same because that is your epsilon value and that is constant for a chemical. So now I hope the principle and the instrumentation part of a spectrophotometer is clear for you. So in the next session for the same experiment, we will be covering what you will be doing in the experiment part. So, and what will be expected as a result. With that, I'll be concluding the session. So see you soon in the next session. Thank you. Have a good day.